Welcome to the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast. I am your host, Chris Garcia, and today I am joined by Lolita Rico. She is a dynamic educational leader at the forefront of innovation and instructional transformation. Lolita currently serves as a coordinator of innovation for the Chula Vista Elementary School District, where she leads district-wide efforts around educational technology, AI integration, STEM learning, and creative programs like robotics, and the visual and performing arts sectors as well. She has prior experience as a technology innovation coach at the Poway Unified School District and a credential assessor with a Bloom board. She brings a deep and well-rounded perspective on what it takes to make real lasting changes in the classrooms. And her work blends strategy, coaching, creativity in all service of student learning and engagement. And I really want to thank you for the interview today, Lolita. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Chris. This is a real honor.
Absolutely, and I just want to give a little background. Like I've had the opportunity of working with Lolita when I was back with San Diego Q, which is now Cali. So if you're listening to this now, it's been rebranded, but we've connected when we did a presentation and hosted a conference at Design 39. And if you don't know about it, look it up. Especially read all the articles on Edutopia about Design 39. But I will say, I'm a big fan of your work, Lolita. And the engagement and the things that you've done, especially, I would have to say now that I'm working here at the county, a lot of the work that you've done within Poway is cutting edge and leading the forefront of a lot of our schools here. But I'm also really glad that you're now in Chula Vista, which is where I began my teaching career, and continuing those initiatives. So I just want to celebrate you for just continuing the good work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. And it's such a privilege to be able to share everything that I've learned over the years and be able to impact education in such a positive way.
Yeah, no, and it's clearly seen and it's clearly inspirational, and it's I'll even say this. It's like you even have, without naming names, people can do the research, but the work that you've done, you've impacted districts where even superintendents are like, hey, I got to be part of that district and I need to go there. And again, that's why I'm so glad you're back you're in Chula Vista now, just doing great things. And I look forward to showcasing just the great work that you're going to do down there, especially with the partnerships and the stations and whatnot. And that kind of leads us to just a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. And I have a few questions I want to talk to you. Having led EdTech work in different districts now, what do you see as most significant shifts in how schools approach digital citizenship today compared to even 5 years ago?
Chris, that's a very good question. Digital citizenship is everywhere right now. And what's really interesting, just like you mentioned, it has definitely evolved very quickly over the last few years. What used to be seen as optional has now become critical to the entire student learning experience. So 5 years ago, the focus was mostly on like online safety, being kind online, citing sources, password protection, which is, still very important now. But when we look at digital citizenship now, it's more of a holistic approach around digital identity for students, digital wellness and balance, and most importantly, student agency when being online.
No, I love that you said the digital wellness and even digital balance, because I remember about 2013 when I started my career there in Chula Vista. We had a whole initiative of bringing your own device to school, only because we didn't have one-to-one. And I feel like 2020 kind of forced all school districts to be one-to-one. But can you talk a little bit more about the importance of, because everyone has access now, everyone has access to everything, but some of the things that you did, and one of the few districts that here in San Diego and Southern California, you actually had the opportunity of collaborating and doing a partnership with Common Sense Media. Can you elaborate a little bit? How did that look like, especially getting your entire district there at Poway Unified just on board, and all the teachers, school administrators, and students and families, in essence, to just jump on this initiative of being safe online, especially through a great partnership like Common Sense Media?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of our greatest achievements, is bringing that to the forefront in Poway Unified. And in my former role as a technology innovation coach, I was part of a strong team where we shifted from providing recommendations from common sense education lessons to a full-scale district-wide certification in becoming Common Sense district, and that was from preschool through grade 12. So starting from the very beginning, we knew that this was something that students would need to have a good handle on to become good digital citizens. So instead of teaching digital citizenship as a checklist item or an optional thing in the classroom, we started weaving it in to everyday learning to help students think critically about internet use, to understand bias when they're coming across content online, and using technology for good in general. And what that looked like in a district-wide implementation was really mapping out what types of supports we would need to provide as an EdTech team to our teachers and school sites. So first, coming up with the why, the importance of digital citizenship district-wide, starting with our leaders, letting them know that the 21st century is here. Students are using the devices with or without us, and we might as well, get ahead of it and provide those safeguards using common sense for education. So we were really fortunate to connect with one of their regional managers who was able to come and provide some supports. He joined in on the panel for our safety summit around internet and digital media use. And that was a forum where parents and community members could come, ask questions, and better understand how this district-wide launch of digital citizenship recognition was going to happen, and what types of structures we had set up to push into school sites. And first, address staff meetings, talking to the staff, helping them understand why we're doing this and the importance towards student learning. And then, of course, with the coaches, we were able to, either support teachers with video resources, print resources. We pushed in and coached. We modeled. We provided anything that teachers may have needed to meet them where they're at to be able to implement these common sense digital citizenship lessons with their students.
Now, something I'm very intrigued and curious about would be more on the primary grade levels. Did you have any pushback from any teachers, any parents, or even any kindergarten or TK through third grade students as far as like, why am I learning this? Like, how did that look like? Did that look any different than it did for like upper elementary, middle school, and high school?
That's a really good question. So we've been very fortunate that a lot of our teachers were already embracing the lessons on their own, even when it was optional. So they knew that, with the one-to-one technology, that this was something that students needed to have a great foundation on to be able to use devices as a productive learning tool. So while students in the primary level really focused on play, hands-on experiences, screen time was definitely something that was mentioned. But when we were discussing developing great digital citizenship in our students, it wasn't about being online all the time. The importance was teaching our students to use technology as a productive learning tool in a safe way. So when we shifted that language to it's about student safety, right? Like parents, sometimes they took those resources and they're like, oh, I didn't know I can create a technology plan at home. We can use technology productively and not just as, here's some screen time, watch a show, but we can use this as a source of information, and families actually come together and embrace technology through a new lens.
I love that. I love that. You just coined a phrase right now that I find I'm very passionate about, and that's families coming together. Because some of the
Yes.
things that I've been learning and doing, even when I'm working on a specific digital detox program, but at the same time, a parent series where we're trying to educate our parents when it comes to online scams, AI, and deepfakes. But that is the whole concept. There's more is caught than taught. And it's something that I'm convicted, and I just shared with you right now. I have a 7-month old, and it's some of the things that I'm like, I need to reflect on my practices of how I'm using tech, because as much as I know about digital citizenship and even the resources that are out there, I'm like, I need to model this well to my daughter, and and I can see that it's some parents are very uncomfortable when it comes to like, oh, I have to change my habits. I can't. There's certain things I have to do with my cell phone, or I can't always use my cell phone as a pacifier for the kids. And but it goes again back to those best practices and screen time and those family moments that you have things building together. And the last question on this part before we start talking about AI, how was it received with the families overall when it came to just the ideas of digital citizenship?
Mhm. In the community forums that, we did hear back from parents, they were very appreciative of it. Like you said, that some parents, they might only know how to use technology as a pacifier or as a time taker for now. But
Mhm.
when we said these are some intentional resources meant to bridge digital citizenship between school and home, which Common Sense Education does a fantastic job of curating that for you. We just sent them home, and we had online virtual sessions and open forums for parents to come ask questions, and they were very appreciative to have these resources readily available and just simply sharing out the website as well. Like, if you want to learn more, if you want to dive into Common Sense media, they can rate TV shows, they can provide feedback before you
Yeah.
even turn it on Netflix. Like, daily practices that they do all the time. They didn't realize that there was this additional layer of safety
Yes.
around digital citizenship and awareness that is available to them for free.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And let's talk a little bit more about even just digital safety and awareness, because we're now diving
Yes.
into the wild, wild west of AI. And honestly, whatever answer you give for this next question, it's going to be a good answer, because there are no right or wrong answers right now when it comes to just
Right.
how as educators are we working with artificial intelligence. But how do you specifically, as an educational technology leader across our county, how do you envision artificial intelligence impacting the way teachers design learning experiences, and what role should leaders play in shaping policy and practices surrounding in use? So I know it's two questions in one, but let's start talking about first off, like, how does AI impact the way teachers design learning experiences?
Yes, that is a big one. So AI is here, and
Mhm.
some are embracing it wholeheartedly. Some are still hesitant. Some are just getting started, and that's okay. AI is going to completely change how teachers design learning experiences, but in a really exciting way. And I think that's part of our roles of coordinators of EdTech, directors of EdTech. Like, this EdTech department is important in helping to support teachers with that. So instead of like a one size fits all approach with
Mhm.
AI, teachers can now use AI tools to better understand students' needs, student strengths, and differentiate for their learning styles. So it alleviates the time where a teacher is spending hours after work or on weekends, like puzzling through their teacher tool bag to find something that works, when you can just use AI as a thought partner. So I know there's a lot of concerns around, oh, AI is going to take over teaching jobs. I don't believe that at all. I
Right.
think great teaching is great teaching, and we are so fortunate to be surrounded by excellent educators. And with AI now here, I feel like those educators can only become better, because now they can focus on the things that really matter, which is like developing rapport, building relationships,
Right.
establishing trust, get to know your students. Like, you get to be a teacher again. The whole why did you join this career
Right.
can now become the focus again, because AI is going to help us with the laborious tasks like grading, analyzing data, finding trends. Like, yes, those are all very, very important and critical to work of excellent teachers. But now they have AI to support that work, not to replace, to support, so that they can focus on the heart of education.
Well, you're hitting on two, like, theories that are typically brought up when us as teachers are going through a credentialing program, or even a
Mm-hmm.
master's program. We talk a lot about the zone of proximal development. We also talk about
Yes.
universal design for learning. And the reality is, even when we're taking, even we're talking about IEPs and accommodations for our students, sometimes going over that type of theoretical framework or even legal paperwork that we have to, do as teachers, it can be
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming and it can be challenging. And it's one of those things where, even as an assistant principal, some of the feedback I would give my teachers were, these accommodations you have for your student in this IEP, these are good accommodations for them. But guess what?
Yeah.
This could also work for your entire class. Like, this could be something that could benefit everyone. And I mean, even something very simple as far as, like, let's talk about UDL. Like, one of the things, and that I enjoyed when I would go to the Qualcomm Think a Bit lab, was like the teacher would actually have like an actual microphone, and actually
Hmm.
like teach it, edit, and the surround sound of the instructions where everyone could hear that. But again, it was that teacher discretion. It was that teacher going back to like, hey, how am I supporting my kids and my students? I mean, that's just one example. Of course, it's not AI. It's more of the old analog AV example that I'm giving. But it
Hmm.
can go back down to, and you're making me think like those stressing moments where it's like, okay, how am I going to fulfill the zone of proximal development? How am I going to have
Right.
UDL or Universal Design for Learning components in my lesson? And you hit the point, you hit the nail on the head. Utilizing artificial
Mhm.
intelligence to kind of take those stressors off, allow us as
Yes.
teachers to really focus more on those relationships that we're building with the kids, because that right there is what's going to be life changing for the kids, is knowing that they have someone. And I to your point, like AI is not going to take our jobs with that. I don't know if you wanted to add any
Right.
more with the whole ZBT or UDL, any aspect on that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like when we think about, trainings or professional learning around UDL, and we have all these different initiatives that, teachers get initiative fatigue. It's understandable. They wear, over 52 hats a day, making all these choices and decisions and supporting their students, that when they hear one more thing, it's just so much for our educators to take on in a workday. So I really do think that AI can help build that teacher efficiency
Mm-hmm,
piece
mm-hmm.
to help streamline that work and also still be inclusive of student needs and differences,
Right, right.
without having them to be the sole creator thinker of these experiences that their students are going to have. So just looking at AI as a thought partner is the first mindset shift that I would like to bring to educators when I initially begin AI work.
No, I love that, and it's a way of just looking at it as an aid and as a support, and but at the
Yes,
same
it's a
time,
support. Exactly.
but at the same time, like we also have challenges where it's like, okay, how much support are we going to have access to? Because there
Yeah.
are so many options out there for AI. Cybersecurity is huge in it. Not all
Yes.
districts have everything open when it comes to like Google Gemini or ChatGPT or
Hmm.
oh my gosh, I'm thinking Microsoft Copilot, and and
Hmm.
and you yourself, like you and your team, your previous role with Poway, you had an opportunity of being one of our first districts here in the San Diego County office or San Diego County region, where you all created an AI policy that was modeled by a lot of our districts locally. But now you're in a different, and you're one of the few districts now that focuses more on Microsoft, and which could be another
Hmm.
another episode. We can talk about Microsoft versus Google. That's always been a nice one.
Yes.
But
Hmm.
you've been in the forefront of conversations when it comes to artificial intelligence and policy making. Can you
Hmm.
share a little bit about basically the role that leaders should play in shaping policy and practice surrounding artificial intelligence use?
That is a big one. So, from a leadership perspective, it's important to not just focus on the technology. So, just like you said, AI, there's tons of brands, as I would like to call them. There's tons of machines,
Mm-hmm.
is what they really are. They all do similar things. But now it's turning into like a brand war. Like, oh, do you use ChatGPT? Do you use Copilot? So when we're thinking about leadership creating clarity and policy, we want to focus on how it is being used and ultimately how is it going to be used with students to
Mm-hmm.
their benefit. So this is where really strong leadership matters. Like everyone must understand the why, the purpose, and the focus, which should always be on the students. Leaders need to set clear guidelines. So a lot of times we get asked by teachers like, well, what do I do if a student does this? So it becomes very granular and specific.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a leader's job to provide that larger picture view, that umbrella that captures all of those use cases that could come up in the classroom and provide clear guidelines to guide our educators when they're in the classroom with all of their students and things are happening. What are their concrete steps to take around ethical use,
Right.
plagiarism, privacy, providing equity, and then ultimately beyond all of those really large items, like making sure that teachers have the training and
Mm-hmm.
support to feel confident to embrace these tools. So sometimes more is not better. When we just keep
Right.
telling them, oh, you have access to all of these AI tools, that's not always a great thing. We
Yeah.
want to show them that quantity is not better than quality. So we always want to drive it back to, the goal of empowering teachers to feel confident in embracing these evolving technologies. That, if you only have one favorite, that's okay, because you can be using that one tool very deeply and meaningfully for your students.
Right.
And that's always what it comes back down to. Like, how is this impacting student learning and helping them thrive for future context?
No, I love that because that approach reminds me a lot of the Grant Wiggins understanding by design when it comes to creating curriculum. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the main phrases in that, I remember taking the course when I first was getting my master's in education like 15 years ago, was the
Mm-hmm.
you want to create curriculum that's an inch wide but a mile deep. So it's more like
Yes.
we're sustaining something deep and rich here, and it's almost like it goes back to like you have a learning target, and the learning target's very simple,
Mm-hmm.
or you have an essential
Yeah.
question, and the essential question is very simple, but what's coming out of it can be very, very deep. So that leads me to this next question because you've been involved with a lot of ed tech initiatives, and especially professional development. So based on your
Mm-hmm.
experience, what makes professional development in ed tech most impactful for teachers? Like, for example, leading to real and sustained classroom change, because as a teacher myself, and I'm pretty sure you experienced it,
Mm-hmm.
we can go to PDs, but sometimes it's like it's a one and done. Like, oh, this is cool, and then we go back to the classroom. Like, oh, that's right, I'm not using it or whatnot. But what is your take when it comes to making the most of art ed tech professional developments impactful for teachers, so you can see those pedagogical changes in the classroom?
Yes. So I always lead with my educator lens. Just like you, I think back to when I was a teacher and I've been told I have to show up for this 1 hour training. And how did I feel in that moment with that presenter or with that trainer? And I always wanted to ensure that when I had the opportunity to create these experiences, that I am cognizant of the feelings that might be in the room of a busy educator, an educator who's just had a long day, or an educator who has a million things in their head. And how can I make this time with them truly worth their time? So when I think about what makes professional development for EdTech truly impactful, it always comes back to connecting practice with purpose.
Mm,
I'm a very concrete person. I want to know that what I'm learning today is worth my time in a way that I can immediately use it with my students, that I understand it in a way that I can then transform it into learning opportunities. Because technology on its own, if you're just talking about a tool, it isn't quite transformational by itself. Like if we're
right,
just
right,
talking about Copilot, okay, it's a cool tool, but what else? What more is there? It's about thinking how to enhance teaching and learning that really matters when it comes to professional development. And I always like to kind of ground my professional learning approach in 3 foundational principles. And these are not coined in any book or anything. It's just something that lives in my head and drives the way I create professional learning experiences.
do I need to add a
Is to,
trademark or anything to this
yeah,
before I
no,
publish?
maybe one day, who knows?
Okay.
But I always lead with these 3 things in my heart because I think it makes a difference when speaking with educators in any context, is to always provide care,
Mm.
showing them that you care about what they do, building their confidence, and then ultimately enhancing the capacity. So I can dive into that a little bit more, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
So
please.
when I lead with care, I'm always thinking about building that trust, that relationship. So again, shifting back to when I was in the teacher seat,
Mhm.
do I even trust the person who's standing up there delivering this information to me? Do they get it? Do they know where I've been? Do they know
Wow.
what I'm about to, do?
Yeah.
So I know that's really important to, just like how we establish rapport with students, I need to establish rapport with my audience. I always ask, who is my audience? What are their needs? And what can I do to address that?
Mhm.
Because my goal is to make it relevant for them. My goal is not to teach them about a tool. It's about the whole experience. So I want the educators to feel that they're supported in the learning experience and the learning process of what I'm about to deliver.
Yeah.
And then with that leading into confidence, we want our teachers to feel confidence, creating the space for them to experiment, take risks, see successes with new tools. We don't want them to think, oh, one more thing. So we have to be very intentional with how I'm presenting this tool or strategy or initiative. And this can be in the form of either providing video and print resources. So some teachers, just like our learners, they want to read it, they want to watch it, they need to process it on their own time. So being cognizant of our adult learners, modeling it, coaching in the classroom, or even co-teaching with them too. So it depends on what your educators, what your audience members are preferring, and meeting them where they're at. And then finally, with all of those things in place, enhancing their capacity. So now you've shown them that you care about what they do and why you're there. You've helped build their capacity, their confidence in believing that they can learn this and implement this with students. And you're there to provide the supports in any variety of form or variety. And then helping educators to develop the skills and understanding to sustain meaningful change over time. So I know you touched upon that at the very beginning of this question, like how do we sustain the learning? So it's not just a one done, I was here, sign in sheet, I'm out. We want them to truly leave with something that they can take and implement with their students.
I love that because that's the one thing that sometimes as teachers, and I'll speak for myself, but actually, no, I won't speak for because I didn't do that. But I will say, like, I always tried to find a way at the end of the school year. I was like, what could I have done better to instruct my students? And that was my question. And it was one of those things where I will say, up until even now, working as an EdTech coordinator, when the school year is done for us in June, I always look at, like, okay, what could I have done better? What could I have done better? And I'll never forget my first principal talking to my first administrator, Dr. Dan Winter, is there at Enrique Camarena, which I know you're probably familiar with the school now, being in Chula Vista. He told me, don't ever lose that question. Don't ever lose that question, because when you always ask yourself what you could do better, you'll always have sustainable change, and you'll always have the opportunity and the doors open for innovation.
Yeah, part of innovation is being able to revise, refine, revamp, even as the coordinator. And like that's what we are. We're lifelong learners. Then we want to be able to create meaningful learning opportunities for adult learners, because ultimately it impacts the instruction in the classroom with students.
Absolutely, 100%. And Matt, now let me ask you, so we're going to dive a little bit more, and this is the last question, but I want to dive more into your leadership style. Like, how does Lolita, like, how do you balance everything with all these different initiatives that you have to do? So this is more on like leadership 101, and for anyone that's a leader right now, or a coordinator or director position right now, and that is, so you bridge innovation, as far as you lead the initiatives for that at the district, but you also support your visual and performing arts and teacher support. So how do you prioritize which initiatives to focus on while still encouraging creativity and experimentation across your district?
So I'm very fortunate that even though that's a very varied bucket of responsibilities, I am passionate and I enjoy all the things that I get to do for each of those categories. And what I've learned is, it always comes back to student impact. So yes, it could be VAPA. Yes, it could be station and STEAM experiences. It could be EdTech. But I always lead with, how can I support the student impact? And how can I build my educator capacity? So educators, meaning my VAPA teachers, my station teachers, how can I support them to the best of my abilities so that they can carry out what they need to do on a daily basis to support our students? And I always like to approach my leadership style as, where does innovation and high quality instruction intersect? Because we always want to keep that high quality instruction, that expectation at the forefront when we're thinking about innovation. We don't want to think of them as two separate silos. Innovation should blend with high quality instruction as we evolve our teaching practices to meet the needs of our learners. And it changes every year, because our students will be entering a workforce and entering a world that we have not seen yet. But we know there are things that are coming very quickly, and what can we do as educators to support that work? So while, you mentioned a lot of, different things that I get to be a part of,
Right.
the heart of it is always where am I going to have the most student impact, and how can I support the teachers that I oversee in meeting their personal goals for their students and also helping them grow their career as well.
That's beautiful. That's beautifully said, and I applaud you for that because at the end of the day, it always goes back down to like, okay, how are we supporting these kids? Are we doing what's best for these students, and are we preparing them for their future? And by always keeping the
Yeah.
kids first, I don't think you can ever go wrong if you ever
Can't go wrong.
you can never go wrong with that. So
That's why we're here, right?
that's exactly why we're here. We're always here for the kids, and I will say that like even becoming a parent myself this last year,
Mhm.
like it resonates a lot more. And not only do you see your own kid, but you start seeing other kids around. You're like, okay, let me my compassion level for the development side, for their needs, and to make sure that they're safe and secure. It's just it bridges another level. So I really thank you for just the time and the detailed answers that you provided for this interview. And so Lolita, thank you again for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Chris, and I appreciate the thoughtful questions. These are, great times for us to kind of collaborate as educators and professionals in our realm. So thank you again, Chris.
Absolutely. And if anyone needs to get a hold of you, what's the best email or way of getting in touch with you, Lolita?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, but you can also reach me at my work email address is lolita.rico@cvest.org, and I'm happy to answer any questions either on social media or through email.
Beautiful. I'll add that to the show notes as well. So this wraps up today's episode of the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast. And a huge, again, thank you to Lolita Rico for sharing her insights on leading innovation, supporting teachers, and shaping the future in educational technology. If you enjoyed this conversation and you want to keep the dialogue going, please feel free to reach out to me directly at cbgarcia@sandiego.edu, or you can also visit my website at garciaedtech.com for more episodes, resources, and upcoming projects. Again, thank you to all our listeners, and we will catch you later. Take care.